Welcome to the Quick Stop F1 podcast. My name is Tasha, and you could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that. This is an off week, but obviously we wanted to come and still do a show for you. And joining me today is my host, Paris. Paris, welcome back.
Guys.
How's it going? How are you doing?
I'm okay. I'm good. How are you doing? You got a whole lot going on over in America. That's all. Boy.
Yeah. For all of my non-American moods, if you have any couch or rooms available starting in January, let me know. That would be nice. Yeah, it's crazy. I've just been resting. I'm not going to lie. Like, I have just been like processing in my own special way.
I feel like everybody just needs some time to digest, and
yeah,
maybe like COVID and bleak might come back around or something. I don't know.
Listen,
some people might have some things they want to do. No. I mean, yeah. Yeah.
It's literally just like one of those things where I'm like, I'm trying to just focus on what I can do and not like what's out of my control. And so that's why I'm kind of like, I feel eerily calm. Yeah. Like, I feel eerily calm. Like, they talk about situations where moms will see like their kid trapped under a car. And they just like, the mom finds like some superhuman strength to lift it up and like save it. Yeah. That's kind of how I feel. I feel like I'm just lifting the car up right now, and we're going to make some plans and see how it goes from there. But yeah.
Well, let's talk some F1 in the meantime. And then
please. Because what's funny is last weekend, which we're going to get into, but last weekend, I distinctly now remember tweeting that was too much F1 in one sitting. We had quali on the same day, a Senna tribute. We had a Brazilian GP. And I was just like, man, I feel like I clocked in for the world's longest shift. Yeah. And my brain was mush. And now I would give anything to live that day over and over again on a loop if it means we didn't have to experience this week. So that being said, how was your experience last weekend of the Brazil GP?
I mean, like you said, it was a long weekend. Like, if you take it from Friday, you had the sprint quali, you had practice, then the washout Saturday, where we were all kind of sitting, waiting on tenterhooks because it felt like it was going to get back, but then it just didn't. And then obviously we had Lewis's Senna tribute moved to Sunday, so watching that and then watching the race, which was just red flag. The whole weekend was like red flags and safety cars, which in a sense, like I didn't hate. That wasn't like, I kind of enjoyed the race. I thought it was one of the more enjoyable races of the season. They seem to be getting better and better as the end of the season comes close. With the FIA Championship run.
Tell me about it. Listen, I was enjoying it too. The chaos, because it's like kind of like a balance. I feel like on the one hand, I loved seeing like all the red flags, interruptions, the rain. And then on the other hand, I was like, damn, like, why can't we keep it on track? Like, nobody's, you know what I'm saying? Like, everything's just sliding. And obviously, I mean, there's a lot that, it's hard to drive in these conditions, like, period. So, I mean, obviously we're going to see a lot of, interesting stuff happening, but it just felt like you couldn't get momentum in the race because another flag. So yeah, for me, it was good. I think the rain definitely made the weekend feel like it was dragging on. But like in real life, it's the same thing. You have a rainy day, it just feels like it just never ends. So that's kind of how Sunday like felt for me. I was like, okay.
I mean, generally, I didn't mind. I didn't mind the length of it. I kind of just kept my TV going and just had it on, and I was just enjoying it. But what I kind of enjoyed was, despite the rain, despite them not really being able to keep it on track, I still felt like there was a bit of racing, there was a bit of drama, there was, so many things happening, and all of it was quite enjoyable. So for me, I just didn't mind. Like, I could have watched the one all day. I don't really care. I'll stick it on the TV. But no, I thought it was a good race, and I don't know. I don't like giving Max too much props, but I thought it was a decent race on his behalf specifically. All you people that are comparing it to 2021, though, you lot really need to pipe down because it ain't that.
Lost the plot. Yeah. I agree. I think for me, just because, we're Lewis Hamilton fans. I think it's just hard watching him have a race where he kind of is just, the equipment sucks. So yeah, you are kind of looking to other, things happening in the race for that entertainment. But it was like watching Lewis's onboards was just like really scary for me because the car just seemed like it wasn't going to stay on track. And so I think around lap 60 something, when him and Checo started battling for that last point, I was like, please, heaven help us, like keep it on track. I'm sure it was thrilling for both of them, but I was just, at that point, I think my body, I was disassociating. I was like, no, we got to wrap this up.
No, but I was thinking more like, we need to wrap up the season because I'm tired of this Mercedes. I'm just tired. Like, why is Lewis always in the bad car? And nobody can tell me it's because he can't drive the car anymore. Like, he's not a 10th place, 12th place, 14th place driver. Like, even if you were going to be like, okay, well, Russell gets along with the car better. Like, cool. Lewis should be maybe 6th and he's 4th. Fine, or whatever. I can deal with that. But he's like way back in the friggin' nosebleeds while Russell's up near the front. I feel like people are just, people are seeing what they want to see with that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm just like, oh my God, I got in my feelings this past weekend because I'm pissed of the narrative that like Lewis Hamilton is washed. Like truly, I'm over it. Like, I don't think the season's representative for him in a lot of ways. And I just feel like it's not hard to make that connection. Like out of his own mouth, he talks about not just how difficult the car is, but it's like unpredictable. He doesn't trust it. I think we're like really past the conversation of like, the quality head-to-head thing, because it's like, you can clearly see that something's not right. Like he asked specifically, I remember after quali, he wanted to start from the pit lane. And this is, I think, the second race in a row where he's publicly said before the race, like, we just need to start from the pit lane. And so imagine my shock and my surprise when I see the starting lineup and he's still on the grid and not starting from the pit with a new setup. And I feel like it's just stuff like that that just makes it all very like sus. But for me, I'm just like, 2023 season literally exists. Like he was fighting Checo up until almost the end of the season for P2 in the championship.
He's won twice this year. Like there are many drivers on the grid that have not even come close to winning this year at all.
Absolutely. Like, it's crazy. And he won Silverstone as a wet drive. Like, what are we talking about? Like, or mixed conditions, but it's just like, I just feel like there's so much there's so much that's happening and has happened that could just show you that like Lewis I don't think has lost really any speed, like a significant amount of speed, not 2 seconds in, a sector type speed. Like that's, I think, egregious. And I feel like people are coming at this conversation with so much like intellectual dishonesty that it just like completely drives me crazy, because I just feel like people are not being realistic. And again, like I feel like if we talk about drivers leaving teams all the time, like, no, they're not going to be maybe like prioritized or whatever, but I don't think anybody's even asking for a priority for Lewis. I think we're just asking like, hey, make his car drivable. Because when I'm looking on his onboards, he's got understeer, oversteer, he has no brakes, he's like struggling to turn the car. I think like to say like, oh, well, it's duh because he's leaving, I think that's like such a cop out. Like Carlos Sainz has a drivable car. He's leaving Ferrari this next season. So, it's not out of the realm that people are asking for these things, because we see how dangerous it is. I mean, it's pouring rain and the man can't brake or turn his car. And
I think what's really, really, really telling is the side-by-side onboards. Like, did you watch the ones where you had George next to Lewis? And George's handling of the car, and George himself will still say that car is not in great drivable condition. He's said that for the past couple of races. And George, if he felt like that car was in a drivable, winnable car, he would have been telling you how he could have won the Sao Paulo Grand Prix, right? So we know that car is misbehaving for both of them, but you can clearly see that like, on George, he has so much more ability and grip with it, but it's because the car is behaving more for him. And I don't know if it's the setup, like maybe it does cater slightly more now towards the end of the year. It caters more to his style compared to Lewis's style. But at the same time, there have been times throughout the year where the car has catered to Lewis's style. So therefore, can we not just go back to that point? Like whatever setup they were doing before, can we not do something similar to that? I don't understand the reasoning, and I don't understand why they would allow their driver, who has won them 7 world championships, 8 world championships if you're doing constructors, like been a part of the team for all of those times.
Right.
Why would you allow him to go out on such a note?
It's so baffling. It's so bad. I mean, like, that's why I'm sitting here like this. To me, it just doesn't make any sense. I can't make the connection for why any team would want a driver to just drive like this, like whether they're leaving or they're like, this is cars undrivable. You know what I mean? Like the fact that we're in our 3rd season of experimenting and testing, and the car is like not getting better on a consistent basis. Like we have these flashes where the car looks good or decent. I remember testing earlier in the season, like being so excited because I was like, the car looks drivable. Like it just looks stable. Like this is a good base for them to build on. And like, how long did that feeling last? Like not very long. And throughout the season, you really can't predict if the Mercedes is going to be in a good position or not, or if it's going to be stable or not. And again, like you said, for both drivers, like George and Lewis are kind of experiencing like this car just being everywhere, whether they set it up for one session, it's fine. And then the next session, it's completely different. It's just all over the place. So yeah, I think Mercedes in general has just been very confusing to me. I don't understand experimentation where you're not actually getting answers out of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like now we're just doing it for the sake of doing it. Yeah. Like, you know, Chauvelin, I think, came out and said that, you know, they planned on just testing Lewis's car for the rest of the season, which makes sense. They're solidly in 4th place in the constructor. They're not fighting for anything. So I get why the reasoning, they're just saying, let's just experiment. But I'm like,
then experiment with George. Like, yeah, I'm sorry. He's the one who's staying. He's the one who's going to be driving the car next year. He's the one who's going to be like responding to whatever changes that you're making. Why bother making them on Lewis's car? Yes, okay, Lewis will give you better feedback, but you're not going to have Lewis next year. So now you lot have made your bed.
And that's the other thing. I'm sitting here trying to understand, like, okay, so if conventional norms is that when a driver is leaving, like they're kind of shut out from what's happening for the next season, why is the outgoing driver still developing your car for the next season? Like, is that typical?
Yeah. Not that I know of. No, I don't think so.
Yeah. So I'm so confused. It's like, I did see a tweet that I thought was just raised an interesting question, and maybe I'll ask you. But it's from Nige, Team LH, and they asked, has anyone else's opinions on Mercedes changed? And I don't know if yours has. Mine has quite a bit.
Hell yeah, like massively. Yeah. I mean, to understand my relationship with Mercedes, I guess you have to go back a little bit and understand that, you know, I've watched Formula One since I was about 7 years old with my dad, since, you know, back in the 90s, and watching Schumacher, and then really like being like, well, I'm not going to support my dad's team because I was just anti like that, and needing to support a different team, and going through like Renault. So I supported Alonso, and then I followed Alonso to McLaren. So I don't have that thing where I'm like, I am steadfastly like one specific team. As long as it's not Red Bull, I'm kind of going to support you. And especially if you're like a British team, I'll support you even more. So for me, it was like naturally while I was at following McLaren to like fall in love with Lewis, and then, you know, follow Lewis to Mercedes. But I think, for me, if you're a business, I understand why you make certain decisions, and I can kind of follow you in that way. But I like the fact that Mercedes were presenting themselves as a family at one point, and they were presenting themselves as a unit. You know, even little things like the way Toto handled Valtteri leaving, for example, like being like, we're not going to announce anything with George until we make sure that Valtteri's got a drive. And, you know, there's certain things that you assume that they're trying to do with integrity. A little bit of the facade kind of fell on 2021 when they didn't really stick up for Lewis the way that I hoped they would after everything they said in 2020. And, you know, part of me thought, well, maybe it's just because they've been resting on their laurels as such a good constructor team, as such a good outfit, you know, like, and then you do start to see all of the cracks, because you're like, well, actually, you guys can't put a pit stop together. Can't really put a strategy together either if you're not at the front. Like, what are you guys? What am I supposed to support as a team, as a brand? Like, what am I supporting here? and
Right.
don't really see it anymore.
Yeah, it's been tough for me because I am, again, 2021 was interesting. I think I was like so angry that they decided not to kind of further, push litigation or, some sort of, resolution to what happened in Abu Dhabi. And then, you see Toto out there crowd surfing, and I'm just like, okay. And listen, I get it. Like, everybody's tired. It's the end of the year. People need to celebrate. Fine. But it's optics, and that shit looks weird. And then we get to 2022 and we're told like, oh, we're going to try so hard to get you a car that, it can fight back at the front. And Lewis spends most of the season testing. George is new to the team, so obviously they're not going to really give him that responsibility, which makes complete and perfect total sense. But then that narrative starts of like, oh, George Russell's beating Lewis. And I'm like, okay, this is getting weird because we understand the context of like what's happening here. And then 2023, we're getting weird mixed signals because Lewis is Mr. Mercedes, that helmet, special helmet he did for Japan, and like, all the captions, Mr. Mercedes, da, da, da. Like we're getting close to this contract extension, but like it almost like never came. Like they kept saying like, oh, we're taking, it's taking a bit longer. Oh, we're going to have, lunch at Toto's house or something. You know what I mean? Like it just kept like getting like delayed. And then January comes and we're seeing another Lewis to Ferrari rumor out of nowhere. And we're like joking. And then the next morning it's confirmed. So it's just like stuff's been weird for a long, long time. And I feel like this season in terms of the performance, because like I said, the reason why I keep bringing up 2023 is because I'm like, when Lewis wasn't doing as much testing on the car, he was doing, I think, better than you could expect a person to do in that car. Like I said, third in the drivers, and then he was able to also score enough points to get them second in the constructors. And I know George had a little bit of a worse season, but still, like, for somebody to have such a, like, I don't know, a shit car, I feel like you still have to have like a lot of skill to get those type of results, and a lot of consistency to get those types of results. So to now land in 2024 and suddenly the man can't qualify, he can't drive in the rain, allegedly, like all this stuff that he could just do just over the winter break. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to believe it.
Do you know what this is giving? For me, it's absolutely giving. Have you ever had a friend that secretly hates you?
I mean, I wouldn't know. I hope not.
Good. I'm glad. I'm glad. But it from time to time. It happens from time to time. I feel like some people will understand. Like sometimes there's somebody who you swear blind is your friend and has your best interests at heart. And secretly they're kind of praying for your downfall, or even just like doing things that will aid in your downfall. And I feel like somehow Mercedes have got themselves into this really weird cycle with Lewis, and it's not helping them from a brand point of view. So I don't actually think it's hit them how many fans that they're going to lose. Like how many people are literally just going to become Ferrari fans overnight, and as soon as Lewis leaves, and that's going to take a big hit on their. How many people every year go to like Silverstone or all the races and will buy 44 hats and t-shirts and all that kind of stuff? Like that's all going to go to. And I'm sorry, as sweet as Kimi Antonelli might be, but he ain't got a fan base yet. He's not going to. People are not going to be there like out to buy his shirts and his merch yet. George might have a couple, but it's still not on Lewis's level. In fact, I mean. Anyway, let me not even get started on George's brand deals that he has now, because weren't nobody doing that in the way that Lewis was doing it over the past few years. Not saying that they never had brand deals. Like I literally remember, Alonso wearing whoever, I think it was like Guess or something way back when. But my point is, like in recent years, the way Lewis has been like crafting his brand deals and the way he brought in certain brands into Mercedes, and now those brands are favoring other people. Anyway, let me not say too much.
I mean, that's just it for me. I'm like, it's very telling why certain things are happening, and that's why I think it's not a surprise to me. Like you said, like this is a business, and I think yes, at the beginning of the season, I remember Toto coming out and saying like, yeah, we're gonna still give it our all this season. We're going to treat both drivers just the same this season. I do recall that being a huge talking point at the beginning of the season. And to hear, it doesn't feel like that. And it feels like a lot of like promises and things that just have not come to fruition. The car was supposed to be a championship contender. That never happened. Like, we're supposed to be a family. That never happened. Like, it's just like a bunch of, for me, like in terms of their brand image, it definitely just feels corporate and fake. And, you know, I think Nasha brought up last time the fact that their social media is just very wishy-washy. You know, how, if they, I don't even think they still have posted about Lewis's tribute to Senna.
What?
And yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's just stuff like that. It's a lot of stuff like that. So it's just, yeah, I think as fans, we clock it and we are allowed to vote with our dollars. And if you don't support that type of stuff, you know, you move on. So that's kind of where I'm at in terms of
that is actually crazy.
Yeah, isn't it nuts?
I didn't even notice that. I mean, McLaren posted it, F1 posted it. Like, come on, I get it. It's a McLaren car.
Right.
And technically, it's not your brand. But at the same time, I feel like there's things that supersede brand image in that sense, because Senna is like an icon, an F1 legend. You're not doing it because he's in the McLaren car. You're doing it because he's in Senna's car. Right. Maybe I would run things differently if I was on their marketing team.
Yeah, I mean, it's just been interesting to see them move, you know, and like all we as fans, I think, can do is judge based off of what we are seeing, like the perception that we're seeing. And I just feel like I don't think everybody's crazy for thinking that something's not right. And I also think that logically it makes absolute sense, you know, because Lewis is not a regular driver going to, you know, a Williams, no shade. It's like he's going to a competitor, the biggest competitor in the sport. He himself generated $7 billion just from the announcement. Like, that's insane stock value. Then you got him, you know, bringing in all these different brands. He's sitting with Anna Wintour at the U.S. Open and all these different places they're meeting at, all these fashion shows.
Met Gala.
Hosting the Met Gala. Like, he's a juggernaut. Like, that's why I think it's like there's a lot of moving parts in the background. And obviously Lewis has been doing, I think, a great job of trying to make it seem like things are normal on his end, like business as usual on my end. But, you know, even still, you get these cryptic messages in the media that he's saying, you know, stuff over the radio that people are, you know, like asking questions. So yeah, I think my perception of Mercedes in general is just very like poor. I don't really think that there's anything that they can do, unfortunately, to sway that opinion. It's just, unfortunately, we're going to move on once 2025 comes. Like, I'm just going to move on from that team, and best of luck to them. Cause unless these experiments have worked and they're just in the meantime acting like the car doesn't work, I don't know. Best of luck to them next year, because I don't know what they're going to do with this car and this team. The way it's functioning is very scary.
Yeah, definitely.
Very scary. I
kind of can't wait. I just want to see. How there's loads of rookies going to be on the grid next year. Yeah. And I think, you know, this takes us, I guess, into another thing that happened over the course of last week, which is that Gabriel Bortoleto, if I said that correctly, has been announced for Sauber next year to replace, I guess, like Valtteri and Zhou, because they're both leaving. So, you know, we're going to have, 4 rookies? We'll have him,
Behrman,
Kimi Antonelli. Wilson doesn't count as a rookie anymore because I guess he's done.
Jack Doohan, right?
Jack Doohan. Yeah, 4.
I feel like, okay.
No, because I was saying Lawson doesn't really count anymore. He's done 2 seasons.
Ollie doesn't really either. I saw somebody tweet that he's the most employed reserve driver in the world. Ollie, yeah, poor guy.
No, but it will be his it will be his first full year, and I think he's still green. He's still very green.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. But yeah, next season is going to be really interesting from a rookie standpoint. I'm excited for all the fresh faces to come in. I think this is the first time that I've been watching that there's been this many at one time. So it will be very, very interesting to see how they're able to adapt to the sport. You know, if the trend continues that we have been seeing, I feel like a lot of them are going to come in absolutely swinging, which makes me really happy and excited for the midfield stuff to go on. And yeah, I mean, I don't know much about Bortoleto.
I mean, the only thing I know is that he's currently leading the F2 championships, which kind of makes sense in a sense, because like, I know Kimi's apparently drives really well, but he's not quite high in the points right now in the F2 championship. And Behrman similarly, like he's probably spent more time in an F1 car this year, so maybe that hampered some of his F2 championship weekend challenges. But you know, to me, it makes the most sense that the person who wins or is leading should be offered a space in F1 over people who are much lower, but obviously have more connections because they might be part of the young drivers programs. You know, I don't know. I just find it a really interesting thing. Like I wish we had enough space on the grid where whoever won the F2 championship could come straight into F1. But as in, like, that's your prize. But I understand that physically just can't work. So I'm glad that there is a bit more opportunity next year. And we're probably going to have like a really mixed grid. Like, you're going to have like Alonso, who's going to be like 40 something. And then however old the youngest driver, like, that's going to be really cool.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, the longevity of Alonso is, I think, impressive. I'm sorry. Like, and after last weekend, you seeing his back getting like broken by the car because it was bouncing like crazy. But yeah, to see, like you said, to see the longevity of some drivers, and then this is like a fresh start for others. I think it'll be interesting in certain conditions, especially seeing the experience versus the inexperience. We did see it in Brazil. Ali, Franco both had pretty nasty like accidents, but it was a lot going on. It was pretty treacherous. So, how do you feel about losing Valtteri Bottas? So now that it's kind of official that he's not going to be on the grid as at least a primary driver. I think Mercedes is kind of dropping hints that maybe he'll be a reserve. But I don't know if you have any feelings about Valtteri leaving or.
I really liked Valtteri. Like, there was a short period where he was getting a bit like abrasive with Lewis, and I kind of didn't. I respected him, but I was like, oh no, you need to tone it down, Valtteri. Like, you're not that guy. And then what made me like him again was when he came out and was like, you know what, I'm not that guy. And he was like, Lewis really is the best driver that I've ever driven with. And I was like, all right, cool. Like, very few people could have. But just I think he's a great driver off the track. I think it's such a shame, that he's been driving for Sauber, and Sauber have been absolutely nowhere, because similarly, like to Lewis in a way, we know the capability of that Valtteri has, that Bottas has. Like, I also like Checo as a person-ish. I thought there's lots of things that he's done when he was back in Force India, when he was done for McLaren, that made me think that he's like a rich character at the very least. And we know that Bottas is a better driver than Checo is. But yet Checo's on the grid and Bottas is not. And that's primarily, I guess, or a lot of the reason for that is that he hasn't scored very many points over the last couple of years. However, he genuinely hasn't been given the equipment. Like, and that also makes me wonder, like, if Zhou also had a good car, like, how good would he be? Is it just that they've both been in a really shit car and they've not been able to like propel themselves forwards? Even if they were perhaps in like a Williams or an Alpine, maybe we would have a different outcome here. But the chips have fallen where they may, kind of thing. I do think it's a bit sad to lose Valtteri, but he also has a very rich extracurricular life. That man is always doing like tricycle triathlons and sitting naked in some hut somewhere in Sweden making so I'm sure he's going to be fine. I saw him tied to like IndyCar a few months ago as well. I read something and he was basically saying that maybe there's a seat in IndyCar for himself. Like, who knows? There's so many other formulas, there's so many other different championships that he could join, and I think he has that passion where he could do it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's gonna be weird not seeing him. I guess maybe in the similar way to like a Daniel Ricciardo, sort of a character. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, why is your ass hanging out? Type of thing. Like, I mean, the blonde mullet, I'm going to miss these type of things. The driving, like you said, I forget sometimes that the Sauber is there. I'm not even going to lie. Like, P20, P19, DNF, like that's just the typical weekend for them. So I definitely forget that, they're both on the grid, but they're both these like beloved sort of characters in a sense, just familiar characters. So yeah, I mean, I'm not like super torn up if he does get the Mercedes reserve drive. I think that would be nice because obviously they're going to need somebody with a lot of experience to give them some sort of feedback. And I do believe that Valtteri has, better, experience within that realm. So maybe that might help be a saving grace for them next year. Who knows?
I think Zhou also said that he wasn't leaving the F1 paddock. I think in his statement, he said that, maybe there's another role for him in the F1 paddock. So I wonder if he's also maybe been offered a reserve drive somewhere. Right.
That'll be interesting. Yeah, I would like to see more of Zhou. I think I remember his first season in F1, like he did really decent. Like it wasn't like phenomenal, but I do remember him being pretty decent, especially.
Yeah, I think he got like points in his first race and stuff as well.
Yeah,
like, straight away.
Yeah. So yeah, I definitely. It's like, it's so hard because it's like, obviously you want to give everybody as much time as they need to get acclimated. And like you said, like better equipment if they can. I do think they definitely had like a rough shake of things because that car is just trash. Like, I mean, honestly, like there's just no getting around that. It's just not good to drive. They just have made no progress in development. And honestly, though, the social media and Zhou and Valtteri being characters are the only thing carrying that team, to be quite honest. You would actually forget they were there if it was not for Valtteri's mullet. So, I'm not too shaken up about it. But yeah, it is a little bit going to be weird not to see some of the like more established drivers for next year. I don't even know how to segue into this, but we saw today a letter go out from the Grand Prix Drivers Association. But reading that letter, you pretty much know it directly came from the desk of George Russell.
Yeah. Honestly, my man had his full cartography set out. He was like, I'm sitting at the old man's desk. This is going to be penned by my hand.
That quill and the ink, yeah.
He literally, like, do you know what cracks me up about that? Like, I saw that and I was like, you know what? Obviously, I'm sure it had to go through some sort of PR, but even the logo. So the Grand Prix Drivers Association is, for those who don't know, it's the drivers. They can join this association. I don't think all of them are in it though. I think George is like the leader and Vettel helps with it, and then the other drivers kind of mishmash and come and go a little bit, and maybe whoever's on the track can kind of be always a part of it. So, like, even the logo and stuff, like, it's not very well put together. There's no branding at all. It's like pretty much a black and white letters.
Somebody opened Canva and was like, this will work.
Yeah.
This will do, yeah.
Basically. But I'm sure it had to go through some sort of PR, like some sort of check. But it sounds very... the way you would talk to a friend, like, yo, hold on, don't be saying that about me. Come back here.
Very familiar.
You drag someone back by the neck and you're like, no, come back and apologize. Like, let's change that tone. And that's literally, I swear he literally said, like, be aware of the tone that you're talking
watch your mouth when you talk to us. The way you talk to us in public and the way you talk to us in private, like, watch your mouth. George Russell stands on business. I'm not gonna lie. Like, he cracks me up because he doesn't on the surface look like that type of guy, but he's that guy. Like, he really will write a very strongly worded letter if necessary. So don't piss him off. So for people who don't know, though, they wrote this letter, this statement, I guess, kind of in response to the FIA cracking down on the drivers' language during the press briefings. A lot, obviously, Verstappen drops this F-bomb in a press briefing after Ben Sulayem came out and kind of said, like, I don't like the language that they're using. Obviously, Max doesn't give a, so he did what he does. Then Charles Leclerc, it was last weekend? Was it after the sprint race? He said,
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah. He also dropped an F-bomb.
He was so casual that, like, come on. Okay.
It's so and like for me, I just feel like in terms of that, like I agree. I feel like since 2022 when he came in, like I feel like he's just been overstepping on like completely the wrong thing. I mean, they even mention it in the letter, like, you know, we're adults. We don't need you to tell us if we can wear jewelry or the type of underwear that we, you know, need to be wearing. Like they're being very precise on some of the like crackdowns that he's like, you know, tried to have over the past like couple of seasons, and they're just not having it. So I do think it's been interesting that they publicly made this kind of grievance known. And obviously it's directed at Mohammed Ben Sulayem. So obviously they're talking directly to him when they say this. And for me, I don't know. I love seeing people work together.
Yeah.
And
I think there's two things to that as well. Like, so they're working together, which usually I think the FIA gets away with things like that because the drivers are naturally competitors against each other. And, you know, getting them all probably even in the same room at the same time is very difficult, let alone for them to all stand on a similar topic. And there are many times in recent history where, to be honest, I feel like they should have maybe stood together on certain topics and they didn't. You know, is it Saudi Arabia? Saudi Arabia comes to mind. So which was the one where
the missiles
were bombing the missiles?
Yeah, I think that was Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, and you know, even that time, then the Grand Prix Drivers Association had a meeting. I remember that it went late into the night on like the Friday night, and you know, they still didn't get the FIA to basically say like, or they didn't say we're not driving here, and they still ended up driving at the end of the weekend. But you know, we all probably have different views on that, whether or not they should have drove and what else they could have done. But it is nice to see that whatever goes on behind closed doors, like they are starting to stand together and publicly. And I hope that it wouldn't necessarily just be restricted to telling off, you know, writing a strongly worded letter to the head teacher kind of thing. Like, you know, hopefully it does go a little bit deeper in the future. And the second point I come to because of that is I think it might, because they mention the fines that they've been getting.
Yes.
And they mention the fines specifically in relation, not to the fact that they're getting fines. I think people are seeing it and they're like, well, you only care about money. Like you're only worried about it because you're now getting fined for swearing. But they say like, look, you're taking all this money from us, but where is it going? How do you decide how much money you're taking? What are the parameters like for all of this stuff? And I don't think they're saying don't charge us. They're just saying, well, yes, in a sense they are saying don't charge. They're saying don't tell us off in the first place about a lot of these things. But if you are going to tell us off, at least ensure that the punishment is fair and it's just and it's transparent. And I think asking the FIA for transparency is something that everybody has been doing in all areas of F1. And probably some of the other formulas as well. So it's an interesting thing that they've done. And I don't know if they truly understand where they could go with this and how far they could take this.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they're calling Ben's bluff because I believe when he came in, that was kind of his whole mandate was like, I'm going to be this super transparent president of the FIA. And like nothing has been transparent, you know, before we got back from the summer break, or not the summer break, the break in between the triple header, I believe there was an article that came out where Ben was kind of hitting out at like Formula One and the fact that like the FIA, you know, doesn't make as much money as them. And like, you know, I'm assuming he's sad because they're missing out on all of the, you know, profits that are currently being made by Formula One. But it's like, you're a governing body. Why do you need to be profitable? Like, and to the point where, you know, they're saying like, okay, well, where are our fines going? So on the one hand, Ben's saying, oh, we're not making any money and they're not paying anybody. Like they're not paying the stewards or anything like this. So I'm like, you know, where is the money? And then the drivers are saying, where is the money, the fines going, you know, in terms of like, are they going to charity? Are they going to X, Y, and Z? Like, we have no idea. So I do think that it's just an interesting rebuttal on something that he's said that I feel like kind of went under the radar because I don't think a lot of people talked about it or like maybe knew that this article came out.
And to be fair, I didn't even know that the stewards don't get paid. I thought I knew the marshals don't get paid. I knew
I'm sorry.
The marshals are Okay, yeah, no, that's what I was thinking. Is it
Not a
Marshall's
salary though. I think it's like very small amount, but I think they're calling for
interesting?
like, I think they're calling for like salaried steward. Yeah. And yeah.
I think it would be good for them to have. I actually don't mind the rotation of stewards that they have every race, because I think it keeps it more fair than if you had the same stewards at every race. I think people could tend to bias towards a driver or towards a team or something like that. So I think it is actually more fair to continuously have different stewards. But I do think you should maybe have like a core set of stewards that are on your roster that you pay very well and that are almost like, you know, independent, and you really put a lot of effort into them being independent voices in the system. And then you kind of bring in maybe some extra ones that are like, you know, ex-drivers that might have affiliations or whatever. Like, you know, you kind of play it both ways. But the FIA, to me, yes, maybe they can make some profit, but as a governing body, your main aim shouldn't be profit, particularly because any profit could be seen as lobbying in that sense. And I don't think that's a good thing. So...
Yeah. I mean, and Ben, he's got his, like, he tries very hard to butt into like that side of Formula One, like the commercial side of it. Like, I do remember that he came out and was like, yeah, the valuation of F1 is, or a team or something, is like X, Y, and Z. And, you know, they had to come out and basically be like, he doesn't get to put a valuation on stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it's very confusing, and he's very much trying to like insert himself so much into the business side of Formula One. And then on the governing side of the sport, it's just like, it feels like no one's, they're asleep at the wheel. Like you said, there's missiles going off in the background. I recall, you know, drivers being extremely scared in treacherous conditions. Pierre Gasly was talking about driving by a crane and like not being able to see it. You know, we have the
even last week issues. You had the red flag, and was it in the sprint race or in the quali? And Max was complaining that, you know, if they had called the red flag straight away, then he would have been able to get another lap out, which, I mean, I disagree with, but whatever. The point is, you know, there's a fundamental mistrust. He did not trust that the FIA had immediately made the correct call. The race director had made the correct call. So, you know, I don't know. I think there's a lot that could be done in terms of regulations, technical directives, safety. There's so much more that FIA should be doing. And like you said, I feel like Ben Sulayem was like really concerned with things that she should not be concerned with.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, there's just so much going on, and I definitely feel like I think the drivers are fed up, and that's why I think this is kind of significant. I mean, obviously we're like joking about it, but I do feel like it's really significant for your group of drivers, like you said, who are competitors. You know, if one of your drivers gets fined, why would I care as your competitor? But obviously they're starting to see now that he's like cracking down on ridiculous things. And then to your point, none of it is consistent. Like, for example, you know, was it at the Brazil GP? We were thinking that Mercedes was going to be disqualified for their tire pressure adjustment that they made when, you know, outside of, on the formation lap or whatever, while the tires were on the car. So that should have been like a DSQ. They get fined €5,000, I think per infraction, so 10,000 total. But then Charles Leclerc, for saying the F word after he apologized, you know, in this briefing, he gets fined $10,000, 10,000 euro as well. So I'm just like, so how are those equal amounts of money? And they're completely two different. One team broke the rules, and it's like a black and white rule, and they're not DSQ'd on top of that. But then on top of it, it's €5,000 each. Like, why wouldn't more teams do that moving forward? You know, and what I'm saying? Like, it's no.
They'll give them like 5,000 this week, and then next week someone else might do it, and they'll be like, no, hold on, this is. It's like it stacks up for them. And they're like, well, if two people do it, now it's worse. Not that the first one was bad, and then the cumulative effect is then somebody would be disqualified, and usually it kind of goes against like the worst person. You can see it with the bits where like Max was going off track, and then they let him get away with it for ages, and then other people started doing it, and then they were like, oh crap, hold on, no, we need to stop this. So then sometimes they enforce it, and then sometimes they don't enforce it, and now like it's turned into a whole thing. You can see it in so many ways throughout the sport. There's probably plenty more examples I'm sure you guys can think of.
And I think the sport's kind of reaping what it sowed, to be quite honest. Like, this is honestly what happened 2021. No one likes to have it brought up, but like, this is why we're here. Like, now we're to the point where nobody trusts the FIA, the drivers. I'm sure Stefano probably doesn't. I'm sure, like, team principals don't. Like, I feel like the fans don't. Obviously, like, every weekend, depending on the call, everybody's like calling for their heads. You know what I'm saying? Like, nobody actually trusts them. So I do think that they've kind of backed themselves into a really interesting corner where people don't feel like anything's fair. Nothing is transparent. And I think people are frustrated. So I don't know.
I feel like really the only way they could get over that is to have somebody who has a very, very good knowledge and history of F1. Somebody like very respected in the paddock. Doesn't have to be someone famous, doesn't have to be somebody that we know, but like somebody who has a very long and healthy knowledge of the sport goes in and takes over. Like a Charlie Whiting kind of character, like somebody who just everybody always really respects this person, Ross Brawn or Martin Brink Marshall, like, that kind of a person.
Somebody who really deeply respects the sport, versus wanting to be a pseudo celebrity. Like, I mean, if there's a celebrity on the paddock, Ben is taking a selfie or a photo with them. Like, he prioritizes,
including the current 47th president of the United States.
Listen, and God forbid you take a knee. God forbid you wear a rainbow on your shirt or on your helmet. But like, let's pose with all these different, heads of state that, for however you want to look at it, are very controversial. We'll just sugarcoat that. So yeah, I do think it's interesting. Again, which ways are acceptable to be political and which ways are not. And I don't blame any of the drivers or any team principal or anybody who wants to hit out against him. You have the thing with Susie Wolf that happened last year as well. I feel like abusing his power constantly. So yeah, you need, I think, somebody in that role who actually respects Formula One or just motorsport period, who respects fairness and integrity, has integrity. I mean, because I think the rate that they're going, this is not like a sustainable thing. Like, I don't see this at all ending well for one or multiple parties. So yeah, I just feel like they need to get somebody in there who actually has some sort of respect for the sport. And also, there's, aside from that, like, I mean, the valuation of Formula One is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Like, you can't have your governing body basically at odds with your sport while you're also trying to gain valuation. So yeah, I don't think he'll be there for very long, but I'd be very interested to see who might take that role. Yeah. I mean, before we go, did you have any other things that you saw from the race or throughout the rest of the week that we've had?
No, did you? Did you have any thoughts?
No, I mean, the only last thing I'll say that I thought was interesting that kind of bothered me a little bit was McLaren coming out and basically saying that, we were never shooting for the driver championship anyway. Constructors was always going to be our thing. I just feel like that's so sick to do after you like swap Oscar Piastri around in a race, after you take his sprint win, like to come out and be like, it was going to be nice. And I don't know. I mean, this sport is so funny because I just feel like it's stuff like that for me where I'm just like, I hate seeing stuff like that.
One thing I feel about Piastri is he's going to give it back tenfold. He is the type of person who's going to be like, bet, okay, cool. I see what you just did there. I see what you did there. I can tell Oscar Piastri from he said what he said to Alpine before he even entered the sport. Listen. I can see what kind of fire he has. And you're telling me they've been playing with him and they've not even really been back in Lando. Like they've not even really been thinking, okay, let's truly do our best so that we can get Lando this, drivers championship. I guarantee you from race 1 next year, Piastri is coming out like a friggin' racehorse bolting.
Gloves are off next season.
I can't wait. I can't wait. Next season's going to be so juicy. Saying. You're going to have all these rookies playing pinball all over the tracks. You're going to have George Russell trying to be like, I am the big I am. And then Toto's going to be like, Max, you sure? Come. Like, I actually cannot wait. Yeah. Charles and Lewis on the same team. Oh,
it's gonna be
next year's gonna be glorious. I genuinely cannot wait.
That's how I feel. Oh my God. I'm like, this is just the perfect setup. There's so much being set up. Period. When it comes to next year, all I care about is Lewis Hamilton at Ferrari. Like, I'm going to be enjoying myself regardless of what happens, but I just have a feeling that it's going to be fireworks. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Yeah, just that's my only thing is we have to get there. And like, to your point about this weekend taking 6 years to finish, like, I'm like, why do we still have 3 races left?
Oh, you know that though? Yeah, this 24
to get through. Cut the cameras, like,
yeah,
we've seen enough.
24 races is too much, man. Especially because there's no jeopardy. Like, Max has wrapped it up. We know Max is winning.
Yeah, he's done.
As he's done for the past few years. It's not. He doesn't make it an exciting championship. I'm very sorry. Like, whatever. This is, to me, his like first truly legitimate championship. The first one that I personally feel like he actually truly deserves this championship. Yeah, he had to work for it. He hasn't won every single race. His life has not been easy this season. And so this is the first, I count this as his first championship. But history books would tell you otherwise. So I don't know, like, I think the setup is great for next year. I do too. Super excited.
Yeah. I saw Christian Horner actually talked about that. He was kind of saying the same thing we were saying, which is like, give Lewis a good car. He'll be kind of in the mix, and he's definitely kind of, and I feel like that's a good sign. I don't ever like to quote Christian Horner, I can't stand that man, but when he's saying stuff like that, to me, I'm just like, yeah, he knows it's going to be harder next season. I mean, McLaren definitely still has the opportunity to come out the gate as long as their car doesn't go backwards over the winter, which I hope to God it doesn't, because I have been really enjoying seeing them kind of fight at the front with Max, because they're really the only team that's been consistently able to do it. But then again, you have the Ferrari that's maybe potentially going to come out the gate, or will be in the mix at some point in the season. I'm sure the Red Bull will probably be in some better working condition. So yeah, I don't think anybody's running away with the first 7 races like they did at the beginning of this season. I think if he didn't, I think we'd be looking at a way different situation. But I also think it's like a bunch of shoulda, woulda, coulda type of thing, because there was a whole chunk of the season where Lando had opportunities to make up those point gaps. I mean, he was in single digit numbers needing to outscore Max by at some point. Now we're needing 14 or 15 points. It's not going to happen. We don't have enough time. There's not enough races. And then of course he's just not there.
The only way is if he gets a first place finish in Max DNFs. That's literally going to be the only thing that might, and I just can't really see that happening. The form of the Red Bulls or Max's Red Bull is too consistent. Lando, anyway, I'm not even going to repeat what I've said 10 million times, which is that Lando ain't got that dog in him. He's not got it. And I think Lando would have to be in a Jensen Button 2009 car. 2009? Yeah, 2009 car to win, in my opinion. He has to have a car that's just so fast and it's away from everybody, and basically how Max won 2022. He just needs one that's just so far away that no one.
And I worry even if that's true, because I'm just sometimes the mistakes that he makes when he's in front and by himself, I'm just why would you do that? You know what I mean? I don't think it's a car thing is all I'm going to say. I just think it's a him thing. I will say, I think that we can chalk this season up to a learning experience for everybody. And I hope that this gives him some kind of clarity of what it actually takes to be at the front like he is. So maybe in the next season he can take that with him. But at the same time, Oscar is kind of going through that same training regiment. And I feel to your point, I don't think that they're going to be, I think papaya rules is going to be in effect for a while next season, and we'll see kind of toward the end who they decide to back for the WTC. Yeah.
I think Lando needs a couple of good mentors on his side. Like he needs a Mark Webber. He needs a couple of people behind the scenes. Yeah. Not his friends. Like he needs older, wiser mentors.
Yeah. And Oscar has that. So
definitely.
That's the benefit. We shall see how it goes. But do you have any hopes in Vegas coming up?
I hope it's exciting. I hope it's exciting. I hope there are no drains that suck up through anyone on the car. I hope people can all get good seats at the track and not get paid or outbid by the ridiculous prices. I don't know if it will. I didn't look at the tickets for Vegas this year.
I didn't either.
So I hope everybody can do it. And then I just hope it's a really fast-paced race. I think we've still got, after Vegas, it's like Jeddah and Abu Dhabi.
Mm-hmm. And Abu Dhabi,
Yeah, so we've got two super fast tracks coming up. And it's just going to be speed. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. I'm hoping so. End the season with a bang, hopefully. There'll be, that's all I'm hoping for as well. Just something interesting. Vegas first time out was a weird vibe, but the race actually ended up being pretty decent. So hopefully the same applies this year. And then, like you said, I think the last two races are just going to be the more fun ones to watch for sure. But that's it from me. I think I need to go watch some more TV. I need to go drink some tea.
Center yourself. You got this.
Please. Oh my God. I need to go do some more research. Anywho, thank you guys all for listening at home. Paris, thank you so much for joining me. Where can everybody find you at, by the way, online?
At Miss Paris Renee. So I'm sure Tasha will pop it into the bit, but I'm on Twitter. I tweet things sometimes. I'm there.
I just moved to Blue Sky. Not permanently, but I just claim my name. So we'll see how that works. I feel like I jump on everything. I just don't want to be on Elon's app anymore.
No, and I feel like it's going to get worse. Anyway, we will not talk about this. We're going to go.
Yeah. We're going to leave.
We're going to leave. You need to leave.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening and tuning in. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you are enjoying this video, and you can obviously give us reviews on Apple and Spotify, and you can support us through Patreon, where you will get ad-free content in exchange. So thank you again for listening and or watching. Hopefully we'll be back soon. But if not, we'll definitely see you for Vegas at some point for Vegas, because the race is the quality is a little early in the morning. We'll see. But anyway, thank you again. And no matter what happens in life, keep it on the black stuff. Bye, guys.
Look, mate, if you've got this far, clearly you like what we do. So here's a link to subscribe to the Quickstop F1 family. Give that a click. And here's another link to some more cool on our channel. Sorry, cool stuff. And remember, no matter what happens, keep it on the black stuff. Click the stuff. Click the links. Click the links. Click the links. There. They're there.